if you never resonate with religion, but you always connected to God, you might be a mystic. And I'm going to explain to you 3 signs that you definitely are a mystic, and go into what mysticism actually is, especially if you come from the Abrahamic religions, which is Christianity, Judaism, or Islam. OK, I was a Baptist Christian. And when I grew up as a Baptist Christian, I had certain ideas about what the Bible meant by what it said. And that's the same for every other religion. But I'm going to speak oftentimes to the Christian perspective because that's where I come from. So when it comes to being not really resonate with religion, I didn't, because I was a thinker. And I'm not saying that people in religion don't think at all. I'm saying I was a deeper thinker than the typical person. You watching this probably are too. So when it comes to the religions, it's three different religions, but it's 2 sides to them. Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. Okay, those are exoteric religions. There's an esoteric side to the exoteric religion. Christianity's esoteric version is Gnosticism. Judaism's esoteric version is Kabbalistic. Islam's esoteric version is Sufism. Now, if you've crossed the barrier from your exoteric religion over to studying the esoteric religion, you realize that it's a religion of the cosmos. It is not a religion of man. But when you are in the church, when I was in the church, what you had to do, you had to believe what they told you. So when they said Jesus Christ is the Savior, he was the Son of God, he died and was resurrected, and you believe that and accept him in your heart, that was the requirement in order to be Christian. All of those are belief systems and exoteric ideas. First of all, I don't know Jesus directly. I've never seen him. I don't know him personally. So there's no way I can really validate that this person is my particular savior. I don't know. I didn't live during his day. I don't know what people believe, but I did not live during his day. So I don't know him. So how am I supposed to accept that this person who never knew me is a person who also can die for my sins? It didn't make sense to me. Now, the arguments were, well, he's eternal in God. He knows your heart. He knows your mind. He knows everything. Then the question becomes, OK, if he knew all of that, couldn't he just do that from heaven? Why did he have to come down here and die and be a sacrifice? Why was that the case? Because he loved you so much. He loved you so much. And it makes no sense. OK, so I'm so bad and God made me that way. So I'm so bad and he's so good that he comes and saves me. That was an issue in my mind. So when I started to learn a little bit more about how manipulative psychology and propaganda work, I started to understand that politicians of the Roman day, for instance, particularly Constantine, when the Council of Nicaea was called, there was a council that he brought, I believe it was 300 or so bishops together. They put them up in a palace, put them up in luxury, and essentially they needed to decide on a doctrine of the book. Constantine didn't care which way it went, but since Christianity was legalized as a religion, then we need to figure out what is heresy and what is not. Unanimously, the bishops voted one way, and there were 2 of them that voted a different way. It was the Arians. And those Arians got known as heretics and were, I believe they were exiled from the land, because that's how it was in that day. They needed to unify politically. That had nothing to do with the religion. So fast forward till today, and we are reading the book and only the books that they put in the Bible then. And it had nothing to do with an internal mystical experience. They had never connected to God directly. These were just bishops who decided this goes there. And Constantine said, all right, this is true. This is not true. And the guy Constantine did not have a spiritual experience. He wasn't that guy. He was an emperor who had a motive for political unrest, to solve the political unrest. That was it. The Christians wouldn't fight in the Roman armies. So when you understand human motive, you realize that this is tainted with an idea of, I need these people to do a certain thing, and I need to make it okay for them to come fight in this war because we're Christian now. So you can fight in a war because we're Christian. Look, we believe. So let's all go to war and do this thing together. That was the whole intent behind Constantine calling the Council of Nicaea. So it really had nothing to do with spiritual experience and raising conscious awareness. Had nothing to do with that. Had to do with slavery. It had to do with manipulating the minds of people and keeping them enslaved and trapped. That was the key. So when you study the esoteric religion, for instance, Rumi is a esoteric. If you ever studied the poetry of Rumi, he's talking about the blissful, ecstatic experiences of the divine. But he's never arguing for this or that when it comes to Islam or Christianity or any other type. When you look at Sri Ramakrishna, who was Hindu, he practiced the Islamic religion and practiced Christianity himself. He said all of these paths lead to the divine if you practice it internally, if you devote yourself sincerely. So the problem became when people who are exoteric based, meaning they think with their external mind, they observe external practices because they believe that the rituals is what's going to save them, or they don't even know if the ritual is going to save them. They believe they're going to go to heaven because of what they do externally. They don't realize that you don't self-realize and realize who God is until you realize you are God directly. That has to happen from a direct experience. So these mystics, these are people who are mystics. The mystics experience themselves, the God directly. They did not experience God because of they didn't believe in God. It was unnecessary because belief just says, I really don't know. I'm just guessing. I got a little information. I don't really know, but I believe. Belief is insufficient. I've never subscribed to belief, and you haven't either. If you watching this, you are most likely a mystic. Okay, so what do mystics do? Mystics have to experience God for themselves, and only then are they satisfied with their understanding. Exoteric religions, they don't need to experience God for themselves. They can get an idea of God, believe it, and that's good enough for them. But even if you have had an experience of God over on the exoteric side, what you'll notice is a lot of people who, I was talking to a guy earlier this week, and he was an exoteric Christian. This guy said he was so scared to go to hell. He had a vision. He was going to hell. Fear. Okay, fear. And he's so scared to go to hell that it scared him into being a Christian. And now he's full blown Christian because he was scared as hell. So I want you to think about that. Why would I want to subscribe to an idea that came purely from fear when the Bible actually says God has not given the spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind? Why would I ever want that? Well, it doesn't matter because I'm emotional. I believe it. It feels right. I feel strongly about it because I'm scared. So it's nuances to actually realizing yourself and realizing what these religions are actually for. So what were the religions designed for in the first place? All three religions originally were designed to connect you to the divine. How does it do that? It does that first by getting a person who's never had an awakening experience to do certain external things and obey moral law. Why is that the case? Because energetically, when you do the right thing, at bare minimum, you don't create negative karma for yourself that disallows you from connecting more deeply. So they get them practicing externally good things. Why? Because they've never experienced God directly. And in the meantime, you just need to be as good of a person as you can so you don't accumulate negative karma so you can actually connect with the divine. Connecting with the divine requires positive merit. What that means is you have a pure spirit. You have pure intent. So this is the reason why a person who does not have the religion of Christianity, Islam, or Judaism can have a direct experience of God and have never obeyed a religion. Sadhguru is one of those examples. Sadhguru had a direct experience of the divine. Eckhart Tolle is another example. Had a direct experience of the divine. If you read his story, these are direct experiences they've had. They became mystics. So as a mystic, you're completely different from a person who is reading books and trying to obey the tenets of a book. The book is like a signpost. So would you ever say, if you go into a place, let's say you're going to California, and if you come across a signpost that says California that way, would you stop at the signpost and say, wow, I'm in California, and worship the signpost? No. The Bible, all holy books, the Bible, the Quran, and the Torah, all of those books are signposts that guide you to the experience of the divine. It's not supposed to be worshiped, but we sit there and we worship the book. Here's another thing that's confusing, that a lot of religious people get confused, and that show that you are probably a mystic. When you read the book, you don't think about the book as this is law or this is the truth. You ask the question, is it true? How do you know it's true? So, for instance, it was a young lady named Cora. She did a 20v1. She was the one Muslim versus 20 Christian. She asked the question, simple question. How do you know that the book is even true? How do you know that? They said, well, it's hundreds of eyewitnesses. She said, well, the people, you know that it was many people who wrote the different gospels, and they slapped a name on those gospels. And Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were not the people who wrote the book. Well, yeah, but it's divine revelation. We believe in divine revelation. We believe in the principles of the book. Okay, so you don't know who wrote the book. You have no idea who they are. They slapped a name over top of the gospels. And now you're listening to them about eyewitnesses, people who, it could be anybody. And they had eyewitness testimony. She said, do you know that these are not the people who wrote the book, and they're claiming that there's eyewitnesses, but we don't know who wrote the book. So how do you know that there were eyewitnesses to the resurrection? The honest answer is we don't. Are there any historical records outside of the Bible that confirm that Jesus resurrected or was seen resurrected? The answer is no. We do not have it. So what is going on? The answer is these books and scribes manipulated the text and manipulated stories so it fit their agenda. And we're still reading that and reading the book as if it's pure, never been touched by a human being. Divine revelation. Okay, divine revelation that has been altered by human beings throughout the years. Think about it. The book, the Christian Bible was written hundreds of years after Jesus' death. So you write about a story. So this is crazy. You write a story about me 300 years after I died. None of the people who knew me directly actually was there, but you write a story about me 200, 300 years later. How is that possible? You weren't there. You ever play that telephone game where you whisper to a person a story? Short story. And then they whisper it to another person and whisper it to another person and whisper it to another person and whisper it to another person. And by the time the last person tell your story, it's nothing like the story you said in the beginning. That is how information is transferred today. We don't realize the fallacious nature of the human memory. You can't remember something from that long ago. That's not how things work. It's not how the brain works. We know that the memories we have are mostly made up. At least 50% of them are made up. We fabricate, and it's called schemas. We remember a piece of a memory and our brain fills in the rest with what we imagine happened. But those things did not happen exactly how we believe they happened. That's exactly how the Bible has been transferred throughout history. So how do you know you're a mystic? Number one, you have to have a direct experience in order to be satisfied with the God story. That's number one. Number two, when you read the Bible, you don't believe the Bible or the Quran or Torah are true. You ask the question, how do I know this is true? That's number two. Number three, you do have a direct experience with the divine, and that's primary. And you know all religions, all types of religions can get, or types of paths, even if it's not a religion, can take a person directly to the divine experience because you've experienced it yourself. This is how you know you're a mystic. See, when you come up in an exoteric religion, the exoteric Christians and the people who obey external ideologies, they'll tell you things like, you just have to have faith, blind faith, just believe. You can't doubt. You just have to believe. Okay, so I'm supposed to believe something I don't know. but it is able to be known. Why wouldn't I just